if you are running in a sequential order, if you are running in a sequential order, it may take more time. Any long running operations are there. If you are running them in a sequential order, they may take more time. So the Salesforce is providing some asynchronous operations for you. What are those asynchronous operations? Like we got future method, fuel epics, batch epics. These are the 4 different types of asynchronous operations what we have in the Salesforce. What are they? Future method, fuel epics, batch epics, schedule epics. Now, these are used to run the operation asynchronously. So when you say sequentially, when I have code 1, 2, 3, what are they doing? Either they are running like this, all the 3 they are running parallel, or they are running 1 and 2 together, 3 separately. Very simply, instead of running in a sequential order, they are breaking and running them parallel. Breaking them and running them parallel. So what was this? Asynchronous operation. Asynchronous operation. So in how many ways we can achieve this asynchronous operation? The Salesforce we can achieve the asynchronous operation in future method, fuel epics, batch epics, schedule epics. Okay. Let me give a quick understanding about this. Let me give a generalized example. We have one telephone booth. At a time, how many people can go and talk? I have a telephone booth. At a time, how many people can go and talk? Only one person can go and talk. I have a couple of people waiting in the queue. So let us say Shah. This out. These people are waiting in the queue to make a call. So generally, what is the order in which they go talk? Sham has to get into the booth, talk. Once he completes the call, then Ram will get his done. Once the Ram completed, Kiran will get. Once Kiran completed, Wilson. Once Wilson completed, Faraz. So because they are following the sequence. So when you are standing at the booth, you are following a sequence. You are supposed to follow the sequence. Now, Faraz will get a turn only after all this. Okay. Now what happened? Sham want to make a call to someone. Just convey, you want to speak for only 1 minute. You want to give some important message. Ram also want to speak for a minute. Then, Kiran want to speak to his girlfriend. Now, we don't know how long he speaks. Now, he want to speak for 2 minutes. Again, Faraz also want to speak to his girlfriend. Now, you want to speak to his wife, let us say. Then, we have some. You want to make a call for 1 minute. So people are waiting in the queue. They are waiting in the queue. When they are waiting in the queue, the order in which they make a call is sequential. Sham has to complete, Ram has to complete, Kiran, Wilson, Faraz, Divya. So this is the order in which they make a call. But what happened? So if everyone is waiting for 1 minute, no issue. There is no issue. So what happened? First person goes within a 1 minute, immediately second person gets a turn, so on. But what happened? Some of the people in the standing in the queue, they want to talk for a longer time. They want to talk for a longer time. Now, because of these 2 people, the entire operation is getting delayed, right? So what is that? These people are like Kiran. He went inside, he spoke for 1 hour. When he spoke for 1 hour, rest of the people who are standing in the queue, they are waiting in the queue just because the previous person is taking longer time. The previous person is taking longer time. If everyone is taking a short time, there is no question about it. There is no question because 1 by 1, the people can complete. But some of the people in the queue, they are taking a longer time. Now, Faraz is speaking to the wife. Will you speak or listen, boss? Only listen, boss. No speaking. So what is that? Faraz was listening to his wife for 30 minutes. Now what was that? Now, because of these two, the entire operation is getting delayed. Now, there is no dependency between Kiran and Wilson. Kiran want to speak to, let's say, Kavya. Wilson want to speak to some Jesse, somebody. Okay. Now, there is no dependency, but still, because you are following a sequence order, until the Kiran come out, Wilson will not get his turn. Until the Faraz come out, Divya will not get her turn. So, if any one of the statements are taking longer time, the entire operation will be delayed. If any one of the statements are taking longer time, entire operation will be delayed. Right, boss? Then they told, these colony people, they found this Kiran and Faraz always coming and standing in the queue, taking 1 hour or 2 hours, because of which the other people are getting problem. So there is only one telephone booth in the colony. So they want to avoid this problem. Then what they told? They purchased 2 mobile phones. Gave to Kiran. They purchased 1 more mobile phone. Gave to Faraz and told, boss, you don't stand in the queue. Okay, if you want to make a call, take this mobile and make a call. So what happened? Now when I'm running these 2 people separately, entire operation is running faster. Right? Previously the operation is in hold because these people are taking more time. Now I put those people separately and give a separate mobile. Now how many calls are going at a time? 3 calls are going. One is the people who are standing in the queue, they are making a call in the public telephone booth. The other, Kiran was making a call in the mobile and Faraz was making a call in the mobile. At a time how many operations are running? 3 operations. Now, does the Divya need to worry about how much time the friend is talking? No, because you are running independently, you take 1 hour or 2 hours, doesn't make a difference for me because I am running independently from you. Now let us see. If the Faraz will make it. When you make a call to Faraz was speaking to some Ravi. Now, Divya also want to make a call to the same Ravi. Then what happened? I cannot run Faraz and Divya separately. I have to run one after the other because there is a dependence. Even if I run them separately, Divya has to wait because unless Faraz disconnect the call, Divya cannot make a call to the same guy. So if there is any dependency, I cannot run them separately. When can I run them separately? When there is no dependency. Now, if I want to separate that operation, there should not be any dependency on the rest of the operation. Okay, rest of the operation should not depend upon you, and you should not depend upon rest of the operation. Such type of works, I can separate them, run them parallelly. So if you run them parallelly, what is happening? Operation is running faster, and the rest of the statement should not wait for the longer operation. So when we go for this, was within the transaction, if any one of the statements are taking longer time, instead of running them along with the operation, run them separately from the transaction so that the rest of the operations will be performed fast. Right? Why are you running them separately? They are independent operation. They are not having any dependency on previous statements or next statements. Right? As they are independent operation, there is no dependency between the existing current transaction. We can run them independently from the existing transaction. People have followed? When are you going for this? When any one of the statements in the transaction are taking more time and the operation is getting delayed, then whichever the transactions are taking more time, whichever the statements are taking more time, those statements we can run them independently so that the rest of the operation will not be delayed. Right? Now question is, what are long running operations? We told long running operations should be executed independently. What are long running operations? Which operations you are going to call them as long running operation? 1. Making a DML operation. Bulk DML operation. What are they? What if I am inserting 10,000 records a day? It takes more time. What if I am deleting 4,000 records? It takes more time. What if I am trying to update 3,000 records? It takes more time. So what was this? Bulk DML operation. If you are trying to perform a DML on bulk of records, they will be be taking longer time. Or else, if you want to make any DML operation, if you want to make any web service call, web service call means what? Making an integration with third-party system, sending a request to them, getting the response, and I'm using. Now, when you send a request, if they are sending a response within 20 seconds, it is also a delay. 20 seconds is a use time for a transaction. So, if you are making a web service calls or making a bulk DML operation, then the transactions will be delayed. To avoid this, those operation has to be executed independently from the rest of the operation. How will you run the operation independently from the rest of the operation? You want the operation to be executed independently from the rest of the operation. How will you execute them? If you want to execute them, what you are supposed to do? If you want to execute them, what you are supposed to do? You are supposed to define those operations as future method. Now, whichever the operation you want to run independently, the operation has to be defined as future method. Whichever the operation you want to run independently, that statement should be defined within a future method. So let me give the conclusion one more time. Was within the transaction, that means within the method. Within the method, if any one of the statements are taking longer time, then instead of running those statements along with the transaction, run them independently so that the transaction can be completed faster and quicker. To run those statements independently, we have to define a future method. What are the statements that will take longer time? What are the statements that will take longer time? DML operations and web service calls. DML operations and web service calls. Right, boss? Are you clear about this? Okay. Now let us see. You got the theme? Theme is clear for everyone? So if anyone is taking more time, the rest of the people have to wait in the queue. Now Divya want to make a call for 1 minute, but she has to wait in the queue for last 1.5 hours. Just make a call for 1 minute. Right? So what we are doing? The long running operations are executed independently. That operation is called future method. What is the future method? If any one of the statements are taking longer time, run those statements independently from the rest of the transaction so that transaction will be executed faster. So the question is, how to define a future method? What are the rules that we have to define a future method? And how do you use the future method? Now, how to define a future method? First of all, look at the point. It is a asynchronous operation. It is asynchronous operation. It is used to run long running operations. It is used to run long running operations independently from rest of the transaction. So long running operation. What are long running operations? Long running operations may be what are long running operations? Bulk DML, not DML. Bulk list of it. Bulk DML operations or rules to define future method. You define future method. Every future method should have Every future method should have the data of future. Every future method should have the data of future prediction. Every future method should be static. Future method should not accept. Future method will not accept S object as. Future method will not accept S object as. Return type of the future method should be void. Return type of the future method should be void. Return type of the future method should be void. At the rate of public void. How you define at the rate of future okay, public static void method. Now how you define? Look at the concept system dot debug. Some statement I am giving. Then similarly I am giving a method here. Public void. This is a public void show. Then I am giving one more method here. Public void. Now one. Listen carefully. You understand the operation? Listen carefully. Now this is the forward argument. Now in this line number 1, 2, 3, I am calling it line number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now if I invoke a method call, if I call a method call invoke, how does it execute? If I invoke it, how it is going to run? Let us say even this I am not defining as a feature now. I am not defining as a feature, even I am calling this as the operation. Now I remove the feature. Now I just call it. Now if I invoke the feature method, if I invoke the invoke method, what is the order of execution? Sequential. That means line 1, line 2, line 3. Show. Show means what? Show 1, show 2, show 3, show 4, line 4, line 6, line 5, line 6. Call me 1, call me 2, call me 3, then line 7. Because it is a sequential. Line by line it is going to execute. Execute it. See the output what we are getting? Line 1, line 2, line 3, show 1, show 2, show 3, show 4, line 4, line 5, line 6, call me 1, call me 2, call me 3, line 7. So it is a sequential. Now with the top down approach, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like that they are executed. The moment I created this as a future, I created the method as a future. When you say future, what happened? Don't run this method along with this. When you invoke, call me will run separately, rest of the statement will run separately. Call me will run separately, rest of the statement will run separately. Then what? Line 1, line 2, line 3, show me 1, show me 2, show me 3, line 4, line 5, line 6, line 7. Because that call me is going to run independent from the rest of the transaction. Go back here. What is it? Call me 1, call me 2, call me 3 is running independently. Rest of the transaction is running independently. Why? It was defined as future. So it is going to only call that two operations are running. That's all the operations one side and future method one side. So when you define any method as a future, what it is going to do? Run the operations independently from the rest of the operation. So that when you go for this concept, any long running operations are there, which is consuming a lot of time, those operations will run them independently without affecting the rest of the operation. So to run them independently, what should I do? I was supposed to define the method as future. How do you define the method as a future? At the rate of future. How do you define? At the rate of future. When you say at the rate of future, we are giving at the rate of future, public, void, public, static, return type is what? Void. Why void? When you are running independently, there should not be any connection between me and you. So return type should be void. Now, any asynchronous operation that is running in the SALESFORCE, all the asynchronous operations running in the SALESFORCE are registered with async effects job object. Where they are registered? Internally they are registered with the async effects job object. All the asynchronous operations that are running in the SALESFORCE, they will be registered with the async effects job object. Once they are registered, every asynchronous job will have job ID. Every asynchronous operation will have job ID. Now, future method will not tell job ID. So when you call a future method, it is not going to give you the job ID. Why? Because return type is what? Void. Return type is what? Void. In async effects job, ID is created. But when I call you, you are not giving me that ID. When I call async effects job object, when I call it, ID is created there. ID is created, but you are not going to give me that ID. Why? Because my method is void. My method is void. Are you clear? So how do you know the ID of this asynchronous operation? Setup, monitor, jobs, then effect jobs. What was that? Future method. What is the future method? So any asynchronous job that you are calling will be registered with the async effects job object. Async effects job object. Any asynchronous job that is running in the SALESFORCE, that will be registered with the async effects job object. Async effects job object. Async effects job object. that will be registered with the async fx job object. I hope you are clear. Clear for everyone? Any asynchronous job that is running in the Salesforce will be registered with the async fx job object. But when I call the future method is not going to give me that ID. Why? Because it is not going to give me that ID. Why? Because run type of the method is void. Run type of the method is void. As a run type of the method is a void, it is not going to return you the job ID. I hope I am clear. Now, let us see the next example. So, what is the basic point? Any asynchronous operation that is running will be registered with async fx job object. Why are you running independently? If it is taking more time, then to avoid the delay in the operation, I will run that long running operation independently so that rest of the operation can run faster. Right, boss? So then we are going to use it. Okay. I hope you are clear. I hope you are clear. Clear with this operation? Okay. I will define at the rate of. Then I told, boss, future methods are used to call web services or bulk email operation. So, if you want to call web services, in the future method, we have to define future at the rate of future. If you want to define any web service calls, you have to define at the rate of future all would equal to true. If you want to call it web services, you are supposed to give at the rate of future all would equal to true. Right. Now, what type of parameters are accepted by future method? Only primitive. Non-primitives are not accepted. Only primitive parameters I can pass to a future method. Non-primitives I cannot pass. Right. Similarly, now can I clear? Anyone has any query on this format? Anyone has any query? So what is the purpose of this? No? Again? Thank you. First time capture was wrong. Right. Let me check. This to just send a SMS. Do we have any SMS functionality in the Salesforce? There is no built-in SMS functionality. As there is no built-in SMS functionality, we want to forgot password. Register mobile number. What number I given? Let me check if I can make it. I'll give web service the trigger with no, hello. I'll try it later. Okay. I'll give another format. Okay. So Ramesh, any operation taking longer time. Now, example, I want to get my account activated. Now I need to have a mobile. If I have to go to the class, ask the permission to come, open my rack, give my mobile number, then activate the account, it is taking more time. So what do we need to do? I told tomorrow will execute. Let us do another example. Now what is it? We are avoiding the long running operation, making running the operation independently, running in future. Now how to make this long running operation? Web service calls. It is one of the example of long running operation. In the trigger, I want to call these web services. In the trigger, I want to call web services. Whenever a new customer is created, let us see. Where is your Salesforce account? Now I'm going to take. Now I want to take this operation. Whenever new customer is created, whatever the city that customer has created, the customer city, whether I have to get, and I want to store it in the Salesforce. Now, whatever the customer city is given, based on the city, I want to get the weather report and update to the customer record. Now, when this should happen? Whenever a new customer is created, automatically I want to send a call to third party, find out. Automatically send a call to third party, find out, or else I can give. Okay, I will find out based on the city of the customer. I will find out the pin code of the customer. Based on the city, okay. Based on the city, I will find out the pin code, and I will have to update. So when a customer creates any record, I have to find out the pin code of the customer. Based on the city name, we want to find out the pin code. I want to find out the pin code. What is that? I want to find out the pin code based on the location, based on the city. I want to find out the pin code. That pin code I want to upload to record. Now, how do you get this pin code? Pin code is not there in my Salesforce. You are supposed to find out the pin code. The pin code is available in some third-party system. So when a new customer is created, based on the city, find out the pin code and update the pin code. Now, when a new customer is created, this should happen. Automatically, this should happen after a new customer is created. Now, if some action need to be performed, if you want some action to be performed, automatically, when a record is created, then you are supposed to go with the trigger. Whenever a record is created, updated, deleted, you want some action. Then what I'm doing? I am performing triggers. But the problem is, what is the problem? Actually, you have seen, the problem is, But the problem is we cannot make a web service call from the triggers. Actually, I gave questions. While I am discussing about the triggers, I gave. Can I call the web service call from the triggers? Can I call a web service call from the triggers? We cannot call synchronous web services from the triggers. Can we call web service call out from the trigger? Synchronous web services are not allowed in the trigger. So what I am doing, first we will make an attempt whether trigger is accepting or not. So that both the points will be covered. So what I was doing, go to an object, setup, create an object, builder. Already we have an object. Customer object is already there. New customer. Customer name amount. And I'm going to give text. Okay. Do you have any triggers on this? A pro trigger is already there. Now, whenever a new customer is created, I was supposed to call web service call. Now, what I'm doing, I told you already, it's not a best practice to write a logic in the trigger, write an apex class. So, postal. Now, let us see the example. So, how you define public static void public static void call. If we pass list of customers, you take the customer. Okay. Now, if we pass a list of customer, I was supposed to take one by one record. Customer. Don't worry about the web service call what I am giving. Don't worry about the web service call. Understand that it's a web service call, that's all. We are trying to make HTTP equal to. I'm trying to make some web service call. Just dot string URL equal to. What is the web service call that I'm trying to make? C dot. Then I'm giving it request dot set endpoint. Now you just understand the topic with respect to the topics what you learned. So with respect to the trigger I told, you cannot call a web service call in the trigger. Synchronous web service call is not allowed in the trigger. Set endpoint, set method, then HTTP response. We are going to get some body of JSON. Ready. Don't worry about the code what I'm writing, boss. Just understand that it's a web service call. Don't worry about the code I'm giving again. Just understand. So my pin code, where is the pin code we're getting? Then at the same time, you are supposed to understand what are the pin code you are getting. You have to store it. In which variable you have to store. Was based on the city, find out the pin code. To find out the pin code, we are sending a request to some third party system. So what is the third party system? C dot. Then you are supposed to perform. Request dot set method get. So look at the format. What is it? HTTP response. Double time I give a response. Look at the format. We created jp dot. My requirement is I was making some web service call to third party system to find out the pin code. So what is the third party system? How I'm writing? It is not important. It's level for you. But you understand that I'm making a call to third party system to get the web services. Using web service, I'm writing a call to get the pin code. Okay. Now what happened? When I'm trying to call this, where should I call this? I have to call this within a trigger. Which trigger? Already there is a trigger on the customer object, which I'm going to call open triggers customer approval. I'm giving it. There are a couple of issues, you will find out one by one. There are a couple of issues. Whatever I explain in terms of feature method, I'll explain all the points here. First of all, I'm trying to call a method. I'm trying to call a method with a web service. When you call this method, what is happening? Web service call is going. So question is, can a trigger support web service call? First question. Can a trigger support web service? I wrote a web service call here. I'm calling the web service here. Can a trigger support web service call? Now go back to the record. Customer. New customer. When you made a call, it throws error message. What is it? Triggers are not supported currently. Triggers are currently not supported. Web services in the triggers are not currently supported. So what does it mean? Boss, you are not allowed to make web service calls within a trigger. What type of web service call? Synchronous. Now I made a web service call and it says you cannot call a web service call within a you cannot make a web service call within a trigger. Okay. Then what I'm doing? I am making this call as a future. When it's a future, it becomes what? When it's a future, it becomes what? Asynchronous. It becomes asynchronous. But when you write a future, it becomes asynchronous. Now look at this. Now it has become a web service asynchronous. But what it has thrown? It is throwing error message. What is the error message? Look at the error message. Future method does not support parameter type called list of S objects. Future method will not support list of S objects. Primitive parameters are only supported. Non-primitive are not supported. So it is a list of S objects which are not supported. So what I was supposed to do? ID is a primitive or not? Is ID is a primitive or not? ID is a primitive. Okay, so what I'm doing? Instead of passing record, I am passing list of records, IDs of list of records. Now, first thing I told, future method doesn't support non-primitive parameters in the method. I give customers its own error message. So instead of records, I am giving ID. The people get that point. Future method doesn't support. Future method doesn't support. Future method doesn't support non-primitive parameters. So in the trigger also, instead of trigger.new, I was supposed to pass give it set of ID. Key set. When you say key set, you get only set of keys. Trigger.new map will have what? Map. The map will have only keys. So look at the format. Is it saved successfully now? Yes. Why? Because we are not passing S object, we are passing primitive list of IDs. Okay. Now I can make a call. Once I can make a call. When you make a call, no issue. But you go to jobs and find out whether the job is successful or failure. The job should be failure because we made one mistake there. What happened? Job failed. Why job failed? If you want to call a web service from the trigger, if you want to call a web service from the trigger, it has to be in the future. If you want to define a web service in the future, it has to be at the rate of call out equal to true. But did I give at the rate of call out equal to true? Right? So, if you want to call a web service call from a future, you have to define at the rate of call out equal to true. First point. Second thing, future method will not support S object as parameter. Third thing, triggers will not support. Triggers will not support. Triggers will not support synchronous web service. Web services has to be in asynchronous format. Triggers will not support synchronous web service. Triggers has to be in the asynchronous format. Are you clear? Triggers are not supporting synchronous web service. I proved it. Okay. If you want to call a web service from the trigger, it has to be future method. Okay. If you want to call a future method with the web service at the rate of future, call out equal to true. Future method doesn't support. Future method doesn't support non-primitive parameters. That's what I have given, right? Go back to. So tell me one use case of future. If you want to call a web services from the trigger, we'll be using future. Why? Because the web service call will be running independently. We made a call. Refresh. What is the pin code we got? We got the pin code. Right. Go back to the job and tick out. Right. So now tell me, what is the use case of future method? Future method is used to handle asynchronous operations. If you want to call any web services from the trigger, then you are supposed to define web service in a future method, call that future method within a trigger. Why? Triggers are not supporting triggers are not supporting synchronous web service. That is one of the use case. One of the use case. Second use case, when you want to work with the bulk data, trying to update 10,000 records, trying to create 30,000 records, trying to create 5,000 records, that is a bulk. It takes a lot of time. So it takes a lot of time to handle this operation. We are going for future. I hope all the points are clear. Clear? Am I clear? People have followed this. So tell me, how do you define a future method? At the rate of future. How do you call a web service from the future method? At the rate of future, all equal to true. Every future method should be what? Static. What is the return type? Void. Why void? Why void? Because it's not written, it should be independent. Now why it is not taking S object as parameter? I told S objects are not accepted. Why? Why it's not accepted? Today, right now I asked what is your data? Satish W1. I took the data. Right now the data of the record is Satish W1. Now I give this data to future method. What is the feature method to Satish? Double one, and it is waiting in the queue. Because all the feature methods will go to async epic job, wait in the queue until it gets done. Now it is waiting in the queue from last 10 days. Last 10 minutes is waiting. Meanwhile, somebody came and modified, record as Satish 9999. But what happened? You already collected the data, waiting in the queue. When you are waiting in the queue, somebody modified the data. So the changes are not notified to you. You already collected the data. You collected the data, waiting in the queue for your turn. Meanwhile, somebody modified the data at the backend. Now will we be getting the node modification? No. There is a reason. Don't pass. It's an object. Because they are not immediate operation. They are added to the queue based on the availability of resource they will run. All the asynchronous jobs are going to be added to queue. Whenever they get a turn, they will execute. Because they are not executing instantly. So it's not a good idea to pass a list of S object or S object as a parameter. I hope you are clear. So future method will not accept S objects or list of S object as a parameter. First question. Second point, static. Third point, void. Fourth, when to use long running operation. Name some of the long running operation, bulk operations or web service calls. I hope you are clear with this. Everyone is clear? Followed. Now let us go to one more use case where we use the feature method. Now let us say, boss, we have a team. There are a team of people. In the team, there are let us say a couple of people are here. Understand the theme. I am giving a generalized theme to get the concept. All of them are friends, boss. All of them are friends. Let us say Shamsham, Ram, Divya, this is a team. So they are a group of friends. Now they plan to go for a movie, boss. They are a schedule. They want to go for a movie at 6 o'clock. Some movie at 6 p.m. movie. Followed by they want to have a dinner. So they want to have dinner. This is the schedule what they have. This is the schedule they have. Right. Then, unfortunately, at the last moment, Sham had some work. He got a call from the office. Boss, there is a production issue. Come down to office immediately and fix it. Now Sham schedule changed. Then Sham told the team members, so we postpone the movie to tomorrow. What the people say? Not possible. We'll go. Right. Then, next. During the dinner time, this fellow got a call. Boss, there is some, okay, you are supposed to reach your house immediately. Then he told, shall we postpone the dinner to tomorrow? Not possible. Now Divya was. Right. Her puppy is not feeling well. Now she told, movie and dinner is cancelled. So what happened? Program is cancelled. And what is that? Now in the group of people, some of the people, if they make the changes, it will impact the permissions of other people. Right? It will impact the permissions of other people. Now, let me understand the three characteristics. Now, Kavya don't want to come for a movie. Then what she told? She conveyed to Faraz to convey. Now what is that? Her decision will be conveyed by Faraz. Kavya will not speak. Only Faraz will speak. But Faraz decision is what? Kavya's decision is given by Faraz. Now what was that? If your decision, if you make a changes, your changes will impact permissions of other people. There are some objects, there are some people. If you change your plan, it is not going to disturb anybody's plan. If you change your plan, it is not going to impact others' plan. But there are some people, if they change their plan, it is going to impact the plans of other people. Or getting a point. Now if Sham says I will not come for a movie, no problem. Go, we will continue. If Divya says, I'll not go for a movie cancelled, tomorrow we plan. So what is that? The plans of Divya is impacting the plans of the entire team. The plans of Divya is impacting the plans of entire team. Now, in this case, they are categorized into two people. What is it? Setup objects and non-setup objects. Setup objects and non-setup objects. Get the theme right. Non-setup objects. So, what are the setup objects? In this case, Divya and Kavya are setup objects. What is that? Any DML operation performed on these objects will impact the permissions of other people on the record. So, who are the non-setup objects? No influence. Shyam, Ram, Paras. Now, if we make a DML operation on these three people, it is not going to affect the permissions of any one of the people in the organization. The DML made on Shyam, the DML made on Shyam, DML made on Ram, DML made on Faraz is not going to change anybody's permission in the organization. It is not going to impact the permissions of other people. It is not going to impact the permissions of other people. But if you make a DML operation on Divya or Kavya, it is going to impact the permissions of other people in the organization. So that's why Divya and Kavya are called setup objects. Shyam, Ram and Faraz are called non-setup objects. Now tell me, what is non-setup object? Objects on which if you make a DML, it will not impact the permissions of other people on records. Objects on which if you make a DML operation, it will not impact the permissions of other people, then objects are called non-setup objects. Name some of the non-setup objects. Account. If you update an account, if you create an account, it will not make any changes on permissions. Right? So permissions are given by the other. If you create a new record, it is not going to impact the permissions of other people. Account, contact, customer, all these are what? Non-setup objects. What are setup objects? User. Right now I have a profile of administrator. You modified my profile as manager. Then automatically what happened? My permissions will be changed. Right now I have a role of manager. I am able to see my subordinate. Now you modified my role. Okay, right now manager is reporting to CEO, or right now sales executive is reporting to manager. Now you modified the permissions on the role. You told sales executive, you directly report to CEO. Then what happened? Will I be able to see my sales executive records? Sales executive records I am able to see because he is reporting to me. Now if you say sales executive, you don't report to Satish, directly you report to CEO, then what happened? I will not be able to see your records. So there are some permissions. If you make a DML operations on these objects, if you make a DML operations on the objects like user role, profile, permission set, then we have object permissions, field permissions, group member. Like this, there are some objects. They are limited around 12 up to 15 objects are there. If except on those objects, if you make any DML, any change made on those objects will impact the permissions of other users in the organization. That's why they are called setup objects. Right? Changes made on those objects will impact the permissions of other users on the database, on the records. That's why they are called setup objects. Then non-setup objects. Setup objects are non-setup objects. Right, boss? Now, okay, setup we have, non-setup we have. What is the problem? Boss, either the team, either these people will be dominating or these people will be dominating. It will not be shared. Either they have to dominate or they have to dominate. So either the team will be listening to Shyam or Ram or they will be listening to Divya and Kavya. Am I right or not? So half of sharing will not be there. Either you dominate or if both are trying to dominate, what happened? Right. Same thing happened in the Salesforce also. Non-setup and setup, if you try to do it in the single transaction, they will throw exception. What is it? They will throw exception. Mixed DML exception. Within a single method, if you make a DML on setup and non-setup objects, they will throw error message. Within a single method, you are not supposed to make a DML operation on setup and non-setup objects. Within the same method, I cannot perform a DML on setup and non-setup. If you perform a DML on setup or non-setup, they will throw an exception called mixed DML exception. Now tell me, what is this mixed DML exception? Within a single transaction, within a single method, if we define DML on setup and non-setup objects together, then we will get an exception called mixed DML exception. How to solve this mixed DML exception? Again, we are going to use future method. So what is the purpose of future method? Future method is used to handle the long running operations like web service calls or bulk DML operation, and to solve mixed DML exceptions. Let me show an example for you. I hope you got the theme. Theme is clear. Setup, non-setup, mixed DML. So till now, whatever we learned, list, set, map, SQL, okay, SQL, DML. They are only functional. Okay, they are used for building the functionalities of triggers, email services, future methods. All these are what? To build these services, we are using them. They are only syntactical formats of building these functionalities. Okay, so we are going with a mixed DML, right? So how do you create a mixed DML? Just copy paste the code. So user is a setup object or non-setup object. User is a setup object. What are objects? These are setup objects. Object permissions, permission set assignment, queue. All these are setup objects. Only these are setup objects. Group member, object permission set. These are setup objects. Rest of them are non-setup objects. Now I'll try to insert a new user. So look at the example what I'm doing. Trying to create user. How do you create a user? Select the profile. If you want to create a user, you need to get the profile. Select the student profile. Give the role. Then you are supposed to give alias name, email, then you are supposed to give last name, star, then profile ID, role ID, username. Now we are trying to create a user U, alias name is ABC, email ID I given, then all the data. Along with this, I am trying to create account A equal to, now account means again we will have lot of records are there in account, right? So, any other custom object I have created, it's going to have, so no issue. I'll try to build account ACC equal to I think duplicate records issue is there. I think we have written the code for duplicate records. So let us see this. So what was the bug was? Language. It's not semicolon somewhere. Let me check. What is the bug? Expecting Prasad or Prasad, comma is expected. Now, what was this? We are trying to insert one user. We are trying to insert one account. Account is what? Non-setup. User is what? Setup. So what we are trying to do? Within a single method, within a call method only, we are trying to make a table on setup as well as non-setup. So what is the exception we are getting? Mixed table operation. What is the mixed table operation? Within the method, within the same method, if you are trying to perform table on setup and non-setup, it is going to throw an error message called mixed DML exception. Mixed table operation. So how do you solve it? The problem is because you are running them together, there is a problem. If you run them independently, there will be no problem. So what I am doing? Take it. Future. Click. Then I am calling here. Now what was the issue? The problem is if both of them are running together, there is a problem. If both of them are running together, there is a problem. But now what did I do? What did I do? Instead of running them together, I am running them separately. How are you separating? I defined a future method. Okay. When you call future method, user will be created account. Both of them are getting created, but they are running independently. Right. Now go back and execute the code. So cannot insert or update activity. So all this is because of what? All this is because of that's what I expected. So we have a triggers on account object. Some XYZ triggers we wrote. We are not sure what are the logic they wrote. Let me deactivate them. The same issue. I'm trying to build already some existing logic is there. I have to build a new logic. Then there's an issue. So in the real time, you are supposed to fix it and right now I'm just deactivating. You're supposed to fix the issue. Right. So run the program again. Execute. Then execute successfully. Go back and see. Setup. Manage users. Users. You have a user call. So the issue was solved. So what was this exception and how did you solve it? What is a mixed table exception? Was all the objects are classified into two types. Setup objects and non-setup objects. What are the setup objects? What are the setup objects? Objects on which if you make a table operation, it will impact the permissions of the other users in the database. They are called setup objects. Name some of them: group member, okay, permission set, user role, object permission, field permission, territory. Like this, we have some of non-setup objects. Objects on which if you make a table operation, it is not going to impact the permissions of any other user. They are called non-setup objects. They are called as non-setup objects. They are called as non-setup objects. Okay. Now name some of them: account, contact, okay, lead, customer. These are. Now what is the problem? Within the single operation, if you try to perform table operation on setup or non-setup objects together, then they are going to throw an exception called mixed table. How do you resolve it? Use the feature method and resolve it. I hope you are clear. Now come back to your feature method. What are the hard copies I given you? Now, if a transaction has any long running operations, or statements, and if this operation is not having any dependency on rest of the operation, then we can run the operation independently from the rest of the operation by using future method. Now, what are long running operation? Web service calls are bulk table operations. Rules to define the future method. All the future methods should have @ future. All the future methods should have static. All the future methods should have return type as void. Only primitive variables can be passed as parameters. Okay, when we invoke the future method, they will be added to queue, and from the queue they will be executed. Whenever you call asynchronous operation, they are added to what? Queue. From the queue they are going to be executed. Why I am using a word called queue? Because I cannot guarantee that when they are going to execute. When they are added to the queue, they may run instantly if there are no pending jobs. They may take 1 hour if there are any pending jobs. So they are added to the queue. So now, if you want to call any web services, you are supposed to give @ future call out equal to any asynchronous job that is running in the Salesforce will be registered with async fx job object. How to track the status of the future method? We can write a sample code on async fx job, or we can go with the monitor. We can go with monitor. Then in the future method, we can also increase the coding limits, but it's not a good practice. But we'll discuss this in the coding limits. Then I give a same example what I explained, similar type of example I give. And what is a mixed table exception? So table operation on some of the objects are called setup. Table on some of the objects are called non-setup. So if you make a setup and non-setup together, it throws mixed table exception. We can solve it by using feature. I gave test class also for it, but we'll see that the future. Drawback: future method will not return job ID. Future method is, we cannot call a future method from future method. Within a future method, I cannot call another future method. Future method will not support S object as parameter. Second point is important. What is that? Future cannot be called from another future. What are the limits within a transaction? How many future methods we can call? 50 future methods. I can call 50 future methods. I'll discuss this again in coding limits. Then use cases. So what are the use cases where we can use future method? Handle mixed table exceptions. To invoke asynchronous web service calls. To invoke asynchronous web service calls from schedule effects. To handle bulk table operation. What is the workaround cases? Okay. Now you have a requirement where you are supposed to pass a list of S object to a future method. Future method will not support list of S object. But I have a requirement where you are supposed to pass list of S object. Future method says I will not accept S object. But I have a requirement where you have to send S object. One example we have done. What I have done? While invoking a web service, as it is not supporting S object, I pass the IDs of those records. When you pass the IDs of the record, the future method again I wrote SQL code and brought it. Other one is serialization and deserialization. I can use JSON or XML serialization. We can also use JSON serialization or XML serialization. These are the workaround procedure to pass S object as a parameter. I hope you are clear. Clear for everyone? People are clear? Followed? Okay. Now, let's do 1 or 2 examples.